Be thankful you can even sit here, my mother remarked at Christmas dinner after presenting a gift to every single person except me. My uncle chuckled from the other side of the table. Be glad we still remember your name. 14 people laughed. I was the 15th. I wasn't laughing. I stared at the empty space before me, the only place on the table without wrapping paper, ribbon, or card. And something shifted. Not fury, but something quieter, something definitive. I smiled and spoke 3 words. Good to know. 2 weeks later, all 14 of those people stood at my door, some in tears, some shouting, some pleading. Because the truth about being invisible is that no one notices the burden you carry until you finally set it down. What they never realized was that every gift beneath that tree, every bill keeping a roof over their heads, every dollar sustaining their comfortable lives bore my name, and I was done pretending otherwise. Before I continue, if this story touches you, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if it truly resonates. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd genuinely love to hear. My name is Eliana, I'm 27, and this is the story of how I stopped financing a family that forgot I existed. Now, let me take you back to Christmas Eve, the night everything turned. I pulled into my mother's driveway at 10:06. The house already shimmered, string lights draped along the gutters, a wreath on the front door, candles flickering in every window. It looked like a magazine feature. You'd never suspect every cent powering those lights came from my checking account. I lifted the dish from the passenger seat, mac and cheese baked from scratch, because 3 days earlier my mother had texted me. Not Merry Christmas, not can't wait to see you, just bring mac and cheese, the big pan. So I did, as always. When I stepped through the front door, 14 family members were already scattered across the living room. Cousins sprawled on the couch, Uncle Rick in the recliner with a beer, Aunt Louise refreshing the punch bowl, and my little sister Megan beside the Christmas tree, phone raised, snapping a selfie with our mother. No one glanced up. I stood in the doorway holding a 9-pound casserole dish, waiting for anyone to offer a hello. 3 seconds, 5, 8. Finally, my mother looked over Megan's shoulder. You're late. Put the dish in the kitchen. No hug, no Merry Christmas, no thanks for driving 40 minutes after a 12-hour night shift. I moved through the living room, past Cousin Marcus, who didn't shift his legs from the ottoman, past Uncle Rick, who lifted his beer but never his gaze, past the Christmas tree where a flawless pyramid of beautifully wrapped gifts waited. In the kitchen, I placed the dish on the counter and glanced through the doorway at the dining table. 14 proper place settings, real plates, cloth napkins, the fine glasses, and at the far end, wedged between the wall and the doorway, one metal folding chair. I didn't need to ask whose it was. The sound of wrapping paper rustling under the tree floated through the house, and I remember thinking, this is every Christmas. I'd just never permitted myself to voice it before. Dinner felt loud and warm for everyone else. I perched on the wobbly folding chair, smiling, passing dishes, refilling my mother's water glass twice without a request, because that's what I do. That's what I've always done. After I cleared the plates, obviously, my mother rose and approached the Christmas tree. The room buzzed with anticipation. This was Diane Ingram's annual gift presentation. She lifted the first box. For my beautiful Megan. A gentle gasp as Megan unwrapped AirPods Pro, the latest, $249. I knew the price. I'd seen them in my mother's Amazon cart 3 weeks earlier, linked to my debit card. For my baby brother Rick, a North Face puffer jacket. He raised it like a prize, $350. For cousin Sarah, you deserve this, honey, a gift card and candle set. For Louise, my rock, a cashmere scarf for Marcus, a watch, on and on. 13 gifts, each delivered with a kind word, a hug, a small display of warmth. I counted 13 boxes opened, 13 smiles, 13 thank yous. Nothing before me. No card, no candy cane, not even my name mentioned. My mother sat again, smoothing her napkin as if the performance had concluded. I heard my own voice before I knew I was speaking, soft, nearly a whisper. "Mom, did I—" She didn't turn, just interrupted, eyes fixed on the table. "Be grateful you can sit here." The room fell quiet for half a second. Then Rick leaned back with that familiar grin, the one he wore when setting up a laugh at someone else's cost. "Be glad we still remember your name." And the room delivered exactly what he sought. 14 people laughing, not harsh or vicious. Worse, easy, familiar laughter, the kind that declares, "This is normal, this is how it's always been, this is funny because it's true." Megan stared at her phone. She didn't laugh, but she said nothing either. I sat on that folding chair and felt something like heat, not in my cheeks, not embarrassment, but deep in my chest, behind my sternum, like a pilot light flickering for years that had finally met fuel. My hands stayed cold, my jaw clenched, and for the first time in 27 years, I didn't rush to laugh along. I didn't offer, "Oh, stop," or "You guys are awful," or any of the small lines I'd rehearsed to keep everyone at ease while they treated me like furniture. I looked at my mother. She was already chatting to Louise about New Year's, at Rick removing the tag from his new jacket, at the bare space in front of me where a gift belonged. And I made a choice so silent, no one in the room sensed it. I lifted my water glass, took a sip, and set it down. Good to know. 3 words, calm, almost pleasant. No one reacted. No one questioned what I meant. Why would they? I was the one who never made scenes, never pushed back. I showed up, I brought the mac and cheese, I cleaned, and I departed. 2 weeks later, they would discover what good to know truly signified. I stood, folded the metal chair, and propped it against the wall. No one noticed that either. I took my coat from the pile on the armchair and slipped it on. "Merry Christmas, everyone." A few mumbled replies. One cousin waved without looking. Megan was already demonstrating her new AirPods to Sarah. Then, from the corner, a small voice emerged through the iPad propped on the bookshelf. My grandmother, Lorraine Harmon, 78, watching the entire gathering from her assisted living room 30 miles away. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," she said, her hand lifted toward the camera, trembling slightly. "Drive safe." Something fractured behind my ribs when she spoke, not from sorrow, because it was the only authentic moment anyone had offered me all night. "Thanks, Grandma. Love you." I stepped out the front door without a backward glance. The drive home lasted 40 minutes. No radio, no calls. Just me navigating the darkness, past homes aglow with lights, past families visible through windows and bursts of laughter, while I searched for the right name for what stirred inside me. It wasn't sadness. I'd known sadness. This felt colder, sharper, more defined. I pulled up to my studio apartment and killed the engine. Sat there in silence. On the passenger seat lay a single Christmas card from Nadia, my coworker. "You're not too much. They're just not enough. Merry Christmas. In." I lifted my phone, opened the banking app, and scrolled through the year. Every Zelle transfer, every urgent plea, every first-of-the-month payment, 12 months, $14,400 sent to Diane Ingram. I stared at the figure glowing on the screen. Engine silent, December chill seeping through the windows. $14,400. And be grateful you can sit here. I didn't cry. For the first time in ages, no tears came. And that absence frightened me more than anything, because it forced me to confront why I'd occupied that folding chair for 27 years. You need to grasp who I was at 16. That was the year my mother's second husband walked out. Paul, Megan's father, the one she truly loved. He packed 2 suitcases on a Tuesday afternoon and drove to his brother's place in Nevada. Just like that, the world unraveled. Rents fell behind, then 2 months. The fridge emptied from full to sparse to nothing. My mother barely rose before noon, and 12-year-old Megan began turning to me, not Mom, for dinner ideas. One evening, as I warmed canned soup, my mother entered the kitchen and delivered 5 words that rewired my entire existence. "You're the oldest, you understand?" No discussion, no family talk, no check-in on how I felt, just responsibility transferred like a soaked coat draped across my back. From then on, I cooked. I cleaned, I fetched Megan from school, I signed permission slips she overlooked. At 16, I took a part-time job at a downtown sandwich shop, scraping mayonnaise into bins at 11 p.m. on school nights, and turned every paycheck over for groceries. Megan escaped all of it. Megan's still little. Megan needs to focus on school. 4 years older apparently qualified me as hired help. I recall the single time I brought something home for myself. First place at the district science fair. A proper plaque, not just a ribbon. I carried it inside like treasure and taped it proudly to the fridge beside Megan's drawings. Next morning, it vanished. My mother had removed it to clear space for Megan's birthday party guest list. 2 weeks later, I discovered the plaque buried in the junk drawer beneath takeout menus. I never displayed anything on that fridge again. Jump ahead 6 years. I'm 22, newly licensed as a registered nurse, starting night shifts at a community hospital. Exhausted constantly, yet proud. For the first time, my paycheck held a comma. 3 weeks in, the phone rang. "Baby, I'm in trouble." My mother's voice, soft, the one reserved for needing savers. 2 months behind on rent. They're filing paperwork. I don't know what to do. $2,400. I'd only just covered my own apartment deposit, but she was my mother. The familiar script activated instantly. "I'll send it tonight, Mom." "You're a blessing, Eliana. I'll repay you when I'm back on my feet." She never did. Not that month, not ever. Instead, a fresh crisis arrived every 30 days. Overdue electric bill. Megan needed a school laptop. Rick's car failed. He lived with her now, so his troubles became hers, which made them mine. Requests evolved into expectations. My phone buzzed like clockwork on the first of each month. Her tone shifted from appreciative to matter-of-fact. "Send it before Friday. I need it before Friday." No please, no thank you, just a due date. I convinced myself this was family duty, that I was fortunate to help. I repeated those lies at 3 a.m. between patient checks as my balance shrank and savings remained zero. Zelle alerts became background noise, like a perpetual clock you tune out. Thanksgiving, the year before that pivotal Christmas, my mother announced a grand family dinner, called 2 weeks early. "I need $800 for groceries and decorations. This matters, Eliana. The family hasn't gathered in 2 years." I sent it, more than a week's take-home. I hoped for inclusion, for a glance across the table that felt like acknowledgement. The spread was stunning. Turkey, glazed ham, 3 pies, elegant centerpieces with candles and mini pumpkins. Everyone marveled at her effort. After dinner, she rose, tapped her glass. "I just want to say something." Her voice trembled with rehearsed feeling. "Being a single mother has been the hardest thing I've ever done. But seeing all of you here, I know I did something right. I did this all by myself, and I'm proud." Applause erupted. Aunt Louise daubed her eyes. "Diane, you're incredible. I don't know how you manage." My mother touched her chest, mouthing thanks. I sat near the end. Not the folding chair that year, but close enough, and each word struck like a stone against my breastbone. All by myself. The turkey, my money. The centerpieces, my money. The house, my lease, my signature. Then Rick leaned over, grinning. "You should take notes from your mother, Eliana. She never complains." I speared a bite of pie, forced a smile until my jaw throbbed. 6 months before that Christmas, July, the fiercest heat wave, I tried, for the only time, to speak up. Double shift, 20 hours awake, feet swollen, scrubs reeking of antiseptic. Home, I sat on the bed's edge and opened the banking app by reflex. The figures glared back. In one unguarded instant, buried anger surfaced. I dialed her. "Mom, I need to discuss the money." "What about it?" "I've sent every month for 3 years. I think I need to scale back a bit. I'm trying to save for—" She interrupted as if I'd sworn. "So you're going to let your mother end up homeless after everything I sacrificed?" "Mom, that's not what I—" Phase 2, tears. I heard them switch on, automatic.
I gave up my life for you girls. I fed you when your father left, and this is the thanks I get? I tried once more. I'm not saying I'll stop entirely. I just... Phase 3. The weapon she knew I could never deflect. Fine. Her voice turned flat, cold as ice. I'll tell the family. I'll tell them you refuse to help your own mother. Let them see what kind of daughter you are. And there it was, the threat that cut deeper than an empty account. The family judgment. The label. Selfish. Ungrateful. Bad daughter. I closed my eyes. The resistance leaked out of me like water through a fissure. Never mind, Mom. I'll send it this Friday. After the call ended, I slid to the bathroom floor, turned on the faucet to mask the sound, and cried where my roommates couldn't hear. That was 6 months ago. 6 months of silence, 6 more transfers, 6 more fabricated crises. Then came Christmas Eve. The folding chair, the vacant spot, in 3 words that shifted everything. December 26th, 6 a.m., no sleep. I sat at the tiny table in my studio apartment, untouched coffee cooling beside me, laptop open to the bank's website. The screen's pale glow was the room's only light. I downloaded every statement from the past 4 years, 48 months, 48 PDFs. Sent them to the second-hand inkjet printer I'd bought for nursing school, listened as it steadily pulled sheet after sheet. Then I sat with a yellow highlighter and marked every line. Zelle to Diane Ingram, $1,200. January. Zelle to Diane Ingram, $1,200. February. March. Page after page, highlight after highlight. Some months carried extras. $300 for Rick's car repair, $150 for Megan's textbooks, $200 because the heating bill spiked. When I finished, I totaled it on the back of the final page in pen, double-checked, then wrote the figure on a sticky note and fixed it to my refrigerator. $57,600. I stood staring at it the way you stare at wreckage on the highway. That number, in my own handwriting on a small yellow square, represented 4 years of my life. 4 years of night shifts, double shifts, protein bars for dinner because groceries vanished after the first of the month transfer. $57,600, and she bought gifts for everyone except me. I thought of the AirPods, the North Face jackets, the cashmere scarf, the watch. 13 gifts, likely $2,000 to $3,000 combined. My mother worked part-time at a thrift store. She didn't have that kind of disposable cash, unless she did because I'd been supplying it. The printer fell silent, the coffee turned cold, and something deep inside me settled into perfect stillness. December 27th, night shift. The ER was unusually quiet, a rare winter lull. At 2 a.m., Nadia and I found ourselves in the break room with vending machine coffee and 15 free minutes. Nadia Cole, 29, razor sharp, 0 filter, was the closest thing I had to a best friend. The kind of nurse who could thread an IV in a bouncing ambulance while telling you the unvarnished truth. She'd given me the only Christmas card I received that year. "So," she said, stirring powdered creamer into her cup, "how was Christmas?" I'd rehearsed fine in the car on the drive-in, but when I opened my mouth, the entire story poured out. The folding chair, the gifts, my mother's words, Rick's jab, the laughter, the sticky note total. My hands trembled around the cup. Nadia noticed. She let me finish without a word. Silence hung for a long moment. Then she set her cup down and regarded me like a surgeon studying film. "Eliana, that's not family. That's a subscription service they forgot to think." I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. She asked 2 questions, direct, no preamble. "Whose name is on the lease?" I blinked. "Mine. I signed when Mom's credit wouldn't qualify." "And does your family know you're the one covering everything?" "No. Mom tells everyone she manages it herself. Nadia leaned back. The vending machine hummed behind her. Then you hold two pieces of information they don't, the bank statements and the lease. That isn't revenge, Eliana. That's simply the truth. The break room stayed quiet, only the machine's drone and a distant monitor beep. But in my mind, for the first time in years, pieces began locking into alignment. December 28th, my day off. I did what I should have done 4 years ago. I retrieved the document box from the closet depths, tax forms, nursing certifications, forgotten papers. Near the bottom, in a manila folder, I found it. The lease from 4 years ago. 2 pages, blue ink signatures, apartment management logo at the top. Tenant, Eliana Ingram. Authorized occupants, Diane Ingram, Megan Ingram. Rick Harmon wasn't listed anywhere. He'd moved in during year 2, just for a few weeks, and stayed. No one updated the paperwork. No one asked. I spread the pages on the kitchen table and read every clause. Then I called the property management office. The receptionist transferred me to Patricia Liang, the property manager, professional, composed, the voice of someone who lived in contracts. Miss Ingram, how can I help you? I'd like to discuss options for Unit 14, specifically what happens if I choose not to renew. A brief pause, keys tapping. You are the sole leaseholder. The current term ends January 31st. To not renew, submit 30 days written notice. We'll notify all listed occupants formally. And if someone living there not on the lease refuses to leave? Anyone not on the lease has no legal right to remain after expiration. That would follow standard eviction procedures. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I sat staring at the lease, the bank statements, and my phone calendar. January 31st, 33 days away. 33 days. And the woman who told me to be grateful I could sit in her house was living in mine. December 29th. I drove 30 miles to Greenfield Assisted Living with carnations and homemade brownies. My grandmother's room was warm, scented with lavender lotion. She sat in her recliner by the window, reading glasses low, crossword in her lap, a muted Christmas movie flickering on the TV. Lorraine Harmon, 78, the only person in my family who had ever truly seen me as enough. "There's my girl," she said, her face brightening in a way my mother never did. I perched on the bed's edge. She asked about Christmas. I tried to say it was fine, really tried, but her eyes met mine. Lying to her had never been possible. So I told her everything. She listened motionless. When she reached the folding chair, her jaw tightened. At Rick's remark, her hand clenched the recliner arm. When I finished, she removed her glasses and cleaned them slowly, the deliberate ritual she used when weighing words. "I knew Diane favored Megan," she said quietly. "I've told her more than once. But I didn't know you were paying for all of it, sweetheart."
She told me she was managing on her own. I pulled up the bank statements on my phone and extended it toward her. She adjusted her glasses and scrolled slowly, line by line. Her hand shook, not from age this time. $57,000. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she repeated, almost to herself, that she was managing on her own. She set the phone down and took both my hands in hers. Her grip was firmer than I'd anticipated. "Listen to me, Eliana. You don't owe anyone the privilege of mistreating you. And if you need me to say that in front of the entire family, I will." Behind us, the television flickered with muted scenes of a family unwrapping gifts by a fireplace. Neither of us turned to look. December 30th. My shift ended at 6 a.m. The sun hadn't risen. I sat in my car in the hospital lot, engine off, heater cooling. I opened the Notes app and began a list. Things I currently do for my family. Rent, $1,200 per month. Utilities, approximately $150 per month. Random emergencies, approximately $200 per month average. Organize Thanksgiving dinner, organize Christmas dinner logistics, buy gifts on behalf of my mother and deliver them, fix whatever Rick breaks. Then a second list, things my family currently does for me. I stared at the empty space beneath that heading for a long time. There it was, 2 columns, one overflowing, one blank. 4 years of reality compressed onto a phone screen. I didn't hate my mother. I want to be clear. Even after everything, hatred never took root. What I resented was the role I'd been assigned in her narrative, the unseen engine keeping the lights on so she could stand in the spotlight and claim the credit. But I could no longer pay $1,200 a month to sit on a folding chair. I could no longer finance a performance in which I had no part. The plan was straightforward. 4 steps. Stop sending money beginning January 1st. Do not renew the lease. Submit the 30-day notice through Miss Liang. Send the bank statements to Megan, not to wound her, but because she deserved to know the actual source of her life stability. And the final, most difficult step. Do nothing else. No arguments, no explanations, no pursuit. Let the truth and its consequences unfold on their own timeline. I added one last line to the note. If they ask why, tell the truth, but don't knock on anyone's door. I set the phone aside and started the engine. The sky was edging gray. It felt like the first dawn of something new. All this time, one question kept circling. Why did I wait so long? 4 years, $57,000, and it took one absent Christmas gift to finally see the full picture. Maybe I'd always known. Maybe I simply hadn't wanted it to be real. Have you ever had that instant when you realized you'd been quietly funding your own mistreatment? Share in the comments. I want to know I'm not alone. January 1st, New Year's Day. For 4 years, this was the ritual. Wake, coffee, open Zelle, send $1,200 to Diane Ingram, and proceed as if it were ordinary, as if covering your mother's rent while she pretended she handled it herself was just how Tuesdays worked. This time, I opened the app, stared at the screen for 10 seconds, and closed it. No transfer, no message, no heads up. At 9 a.m., I drove to the property management office. Miss Liang was at her desk, navy blazer, reading glasses on a chain, workspace so tidy it made my nursing station look chaotic. I sat across from her and slid the form forward. I'd like to submit my 30-day notice of non-renewal. She reviewed it, verified my ID, pulled up the account. Effective January 31st. We'll send certified notice to the unit within 5 days, informing all occupants. Anything else I need to provide? A reason? She glanced up. No, Miss Ingram, it's your lease. You don't need a reason. I signed. She returned my copy. I folded it into the folder I'd brought, the one now containing 4 years of bank statements, the original lease, and this notice. 4 years of my life flattened between manila covers. Back in the car, I sat with the folder on my lap. I expected relief, fear, guilt. Instead came an odd sensation, like slipping off shoes that had pinched for 4 years and discovering my feet had reshaped in ways I no longer recognized. The certified letter would reach my mother's door on January 5th, 5 days, a quiet official detonation with a government return address. January 2nd. This was the step I nearly skipped. Megan was 23, in her final year of college, the degree my mother insisted she'd funded through years of savings and sacrifice, the degree my monthly cushion had actually made possible, sparing my mother any choice between rent and tuition. Megan didn't know. Part of me wanted to shield her. The truth would sting. Despite everything, I still didn't want my sister to hurt. But she deserved facts, not my spin, not our mother's, the documented, highlighted, line-by-line truth. I opened email. Subject, something you should know. Attached, all 48 pages scanned intact. Body, I'm not asking for anything. I just think you deserve to see where the money came from. Love, E. I hit send. The whoosh echoed briefly, then silence. Deep, irreversible silence.
I placed the phone face down and waited. 2 hours. Nothing. 4 hours. Nothing. I went to work, drove to the hospital, clocked in, took vitals, changed the IV, checked my phone at midnight in the break room like a teenager awaiting a reply. Nothing. Then 1:47 a.m. The screen lit, text from Megan. 4 words. Is this real? My thumbs paused. I replied, every line is from my bank. You can verify the Zelle transactions. 3 dots appeared, vanished, reappeared. Then, I need to think. And nothing more, for days. I set the phone aside and returned to my patients, but the question lodged in my chest like a weight. Would Megan align with the truth or retreat to the comfortable version she'd always known? January 3rd, 8:14 p.m. I was on the couch eating leftover soup when the phone rang. Caller ID, Mom. For 4 years, that name had tightened my stomach like a vice. This time, I answered on the 3rd ring and switched to speaker. Hey, honey. Sweet, light, the tone she used when she needed something but preferred to disguise it. I think there was an issue with the transfer this month. My account didn't receive anything. There's no issue, Mom. I'm not sending money anymore. Silence. 3 full seconds. I heard her television in the background, a game show, then even that seemed to hush. Excuse me? The sweetness evaporated. You're going to let me lose this house after I raised you? You didn't raise me, Mom. I raised myself while paying your bills. I have the statements to prove it. A sharp inhale, then the familiar shift, gears turning, a fresh tactic loading.
What statements? You're being dramatic. You helped a little here and there. That's what family does. $57,000 in 4 years is not a little here and there. We both know that. Another silence, this one briefer. I could almost hear her mind turning, flipping through the familiar playbook, searching for the lever that had always worked. Then she found it. Fine, cold, flat, a door slamming. I'll tell everyone what you're doing. Everyone will know what kind of daughter you are. There it was again, the threat that had kept me compliant since I was 16. The family judgment, the public shaming. Except this time, for the first time, I had a reply ready. Go ahead, Mom. I'll send them the bank statements. The line went dead. No farewell, just the sharp beep of a call ended by someone who, after 4 years, had no ready script for what had just occurred. January 4th. The group chat erupted at 9 a.m. I was preparing for my shift when my phone began vibrating nonstop, rapid, insistent pings that sent it skittering across the counter. The family group text, 31 members. I never posted in it, but I never left it either. Habit, or perhaps a quiet form of self-punishment. My mother had posted first at 8:47 a.m. I'm heartbroken. Eliana told me she's cutting me off financially. I don't know what I did wrong. I've always tried to be a good mother. Then the deluge. Aunt Louise, 8:49. Eliana, how could you do this to your mother? She's done everything for you girls. Cousin Sarah. That's so sad, Diane. You don't deserve this. Marcus. That's cold. She's your mom. Rick. I always knew she was selfish. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That last one struck like a palm across the face. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He met my father, the man who vanished before I was born, the open wound my mother had spent 27 years ensuring never closed. 23 messages in 2 hours. 23 people who had never once asked how I was, never questioned the source of Diane's money, never noticed the folding chair, all now sudden authorities on the daughter I should be. Not one requested my perspective. I read every word. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from the precise, burning anger of being condemned in absentia by people who possessed 0 facts. I didn't respond. Not a single keystroke.
What I did was screenshot each message individually and save them to a dedicated folder on my phone. The truth was coming, just not yet. January 5th. The certified letter from property management arrived at my mother's door. I know the precise moment she opened it because my phone rang at 4:22 p.m. The voice on the line wasn't her practiced performance tone, her guilt-inducing tone, or her icy threat tone. It was raw panic. "What is this?" She was breathing hard, as if she'd sprinted. "You're evicting me? Your own mother?" "I'm not evicting you, Mom. I'm not renewing my lease, the one I signed because your credit wouldn't qualify, the one I've paid for 4 years." "This is my home." "No, Mom, it's my lease. It always was." I heard paper crinkling, the notice being flipped repeatedly as though rereading it might rewrite the text. Tenant non-renewal, Eliana Ingram, effective January 31st. "You can't do this." Her voice fractured, not with sorrow, but with the sound of control slipping from her grasp. "I have nowhere to go." "You have 26 days, Mom. That's what the notice states." "I'm calling a lawyer." "Go ahead. They'll confirm what Miss Liang already told me." Then the sobs arrived, deep, shaking. For an agonizing second, the old reflex surged. The 16-year-old inside me reached for the phone, ready to blurt, "Never mind, I'll fix it. I'll send the money, I'm sorry." But I stayed still. I'd heard these tears before, in July when I tried to scale back, in every manufactured emergency. They always carried a price. These weren't tears of regret. They were tears of someone discovering the ATM had finally set a limit. The line went dead. No farewell, just the sharp beep of a call ended by someone who, after 4 years, had no ready script for what had just occurred. January 6th. My phone rang at 7 a.m., a number I recognized but had never seen call me before. Uncle Rick. In 4 years of living rent-free in a house I funded, Rick Harmon had never once dialed my number, not for my birthday, not for my nursing school graduation, not on any holiday where he sat across from me eating meals I'd paid for. But today, he had. "Listen here." No hello, no greeting, just Rick at full volume, like scolding a stranger. "I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to fix this now." "Uncle Rick, your name isn't on the lease. It never was. You weren't even supposed to be living there." Silence, the stunned kind, like colliding with an unseen wall. "What? What does that mean?" "It means when the lease ends, you need to find somewhere else, just like Mom." The bravado leaked from his voice like water down a drain. What remained was small, almost plaintive, a tone I'd never heard from the man who delighted in making rooms laugh at my expense. "I'm almost 50. Where am I supposed to go? You're going to throw your uncle out on the street?" I let the words hang for a moment. Then I answered. 6 days ago, you couldn't remember my name. Now you know my phone number." Dead air, then a click. He hung up without another syllable. I set the phone down, poured a glass of water, took a sip, and placed it beside the sticky note that still read $57,600. Rick wasn't laughing anymore. For once, no one was. January 7th. My mother did what she did best. She seized narrative control. I learned about it through Megan, who texted at 6 p.m. "Mom is on a call with everyone. She's crying, telling you you're making her homeless." I could visualize it perfectly. Diane Ingram on FaceTime with a dozen relatives, tissues clutched, voice quavering, every phrase meticulously chosen. I'd witnessed this performance my whole life, the victim soliloquy, the single mother martyrdom, and the gradual crushing turn to "after everything I've done." According to what Megan overheard, Eliana was upset over a missing Christmas gift. Eliana was being petty. Eliana was evicting her mother and uncle into winter because of a grudge. No reference to $57,000, no mention of the lease, no acknowledgement of 4 years of monthly transfers. The family swallowed it whole. Aunt Louise called at 6:38 p.m. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your mother is shaking. Cousin Sarah texted, I can't believe you do this to your own family. Marcus sent one line, That's not cool, Eliana. Rick, predictably, posted in the group chat, I always knew she was trouble. 8 missed calls in a single hour. I watched the names light up my screen, one after another. People who had never phoned to ask about my shifts, never inquired how I was holding up, never noticed I was the one writing the checks. All now sudden authorities on the daughter I should be. I picked up the phone, turned it face down on the counter, and went to prepare dinner. My mother was controlling the story for the moment, but she had made one fatal error. She had contacted every family member except the one person who already held the truth. She hadn't yet called Grandma Lorraine. January 8th, 11 p.m. I was tying my sneakers for the night shift when my phone rang. Megan. I nearly let it go to voicemail. Part of me had already classified my sister as unreachable. She'd had the bank statements for 6 days and offered no meaningful response. I assumed her silence was her choice. But I answered. The voice that came through wasn't the familiar Megan, the one who smiled through discomfort, who complied to keep peace, who accepted our mother's version of reality like a neatly wrapped present. This Megan sounded exhausted from hours of crying. Eliana, I read everything, every single line. I sat on the edge of my bed and stayed quiet, waited. Did you really send Mom over $1,000 every month for 4 years? Yes. And Megan's voice fractured. She told me she paid for everything herself. She said my tuition came from her savings. I closed my eyes. She doesn't have savings, Megan. She has my checking account. The sound that followed was raw, not the polished weeping my mother performed for spectators. This was jagged, genuine, the noise of someone whose entire worldview had split open. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't want you to carry guilt. I wanted you to have the things I never did. But I can't sustain it anymore, Megan. Not the money, not the silence. She was quiet for a long stretch. Then, what do you need me to do? I don't need you to do anything. I just need you to know the truth. Okay, a shaky breath. Then, softly, can I still call you, like, after this? Outside my window, January wind pressed against the panes. Cold night, long shift ahead. But for the first time in years, a family call ended without me feeling diminished. Yeah, Megan, you can call me. January 9th. The miscalculation my mother never saw coming. With the rest of the family solidly behind her, Diane did what any cornered strategist does when the tide appears to favor her. She reached for the ultimate weapon. She called the one voice that carried unmatched authority across the entire Harmon family. She called Grandma Lorraine. I know precisely what transpired because my grandmother recounted it later, every word delivered in her calm, measured way. Diane called in tears. Mama, Eliana is throwing me out on the street. I don't know what to do. I've sacrificed everything for that girl and she's treating me like trash. Grandma Lorraine listened without interruption. No sound, no reaction. When Diane finished, she asked one question. Diane, who pays the rent on that house? A pause filled with confusion. I do. What does that have to do with anything? I've seen the bank statements. My grandmother said the silence that followed was the longest 3 seconds of her life, then 5, then 8. What? What statements? The ones showing Eliana has been paying $1,200 a month to you for 4 years. Is that true, Diane? Nothing. No denial, no tears, just empty air and the faint rhythm of my mother's breathing. Your silence answers for you. Then, like a circuit breaker tripping, my mother's voice surged, loud, sharp, frantic. She's lying, Mama. She showed you fakes. She manipulated everything. You don't understand. And my grandmother, 78 years old, seated in a recliner scented with lavender, delivered the line that closed the exchange. I raised you better than this, but apparently I didn't raise you well enough. Click. The call ended. For the first time in Diane Ingram's life, the highest court in the family had ruled, and the verdict was not in her favor. January 10th, Sunday, 9 a.m. I just finished a 12-hour shift, scrubs in the hamper, hair still wet from the shower, barefoot in my kitchen pouring coffee into my one decent mug, when I heard it, not knocking, but pounding, 3 forceful blows against the door that rattled the deadbolt. Then my mother's voice, raw, unraveling, nothing like the poised hostess of Christmas dinner 2 weeks earlier. "Eliana, open this door, we need to talk." A second voice, Rick, "You can't hide in there forever." I set the coffee down and approached the door, peered through the peephole. 4 people in the hallway. My mother, front and center, eyes puffy and red. In her left hand, the crumpled white envelope from property management, gripped so tightly the paper had creased permanently. Her coat was misbuttoned. Rick stood 1 step back, arms folded, jaw set, the bravado intact, but his eyes flicked repeatedly toward the stairwell, measuring escape routes. Aunt Louise to the side, not furious, but bewildered, as though she'd stumbled into the middle of a film and missed the opening act. Marcus farthest away, hands in pockets, clearly wishing the floor would open beneath him. My mother struck the door again. "I know you're in there. Please, please." I'd waited 27 years to hear that word from her. Now, pressed against my door like a demand in despise, it carried no remorse, only urgency. I glanced at the coffee on the counter, then back at the door, exhaled. Then I opened it. I stood in the threshold, neither inviting them in nor stepping out, exactly on the line. My mother launched immediately. She had witnesses now, Louise and Marcus, and the performance switched on like muscle memory. "Eliana, I don't know what I did to deserve this." Her hand raised to her chest and fingers splayed in that practiced gesture of injury. "I gave you everything. I've been a single mother for 20 years, and now you want to throw me out like garbage?" Rick on cue. This is what happens when you spoil a child. I ignored Rick. I looked at Louise, then at Marcus. "Aunt Louise, Marcus, can I ask you something?" Louise blinked. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Does anyone in this family know who actually pays the rent on Mom's house?" Silence. Louise glanced at Diane. Diane's jaw clenched. "No one, because Mom told everyone she handles it herself." I held the manila folder. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Mom, I have 4 years of bank statements in this folder. Every Zelle transfer every month, $1,200 from my account to yours. Is that true, Diane?" Nothing. No denial, no tears, just empty air and the faint rhythm of my mother's breathing. "Your silence answers for you." Then, like a circuit breaker tripping, my mother's voice surged, loud, sharp, frantic. "She's lying, Mama. She showed you fakes. She manipulated everything. You don't understand." My mother was mid-sentence, something about context, about how I was twisting everything, when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. FaceTime. Grandma Lorraine. I glanced at the screen, then at the 4 people crowding my hallway. "Hold on," I said. "Someone wants to speak." I accepted the call and rotated the phone so the screen faced outward. My grandmother's face appeared, framed in her recliner, reading glasses low on her nose, eyes clear and unwavering. The room behind her was still. The TV was off. She looked straight through the screen at her daughter, her son, her niece, and her nephew. When she spoke, her voice carried slow, deliberate weight, louder and firmer than I'd heard in years. "I can hear every word from here, so let me say this once." Every sound in the hallway ceased. Louise's hand halted halfway to her mouth. Marcus didn't blink. Rick stared at the floor. My mother gazed at the screen as though watching a door swing shut in slow motion. "Diane, I love you, but I've seen the bank statements, every page. Eliana has been paying your rent, your utilities, and your emergencies for 4 years. She paid for the Thanksgiving food. She paid for the Christmas gifts you handed out, every single one. She paid for everything, and you couldn't even give her a card." No one breathed. My mother whispered, "Mama, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." My grandmother's tone never faltered. You took that girl's money, claimed it as your own, and then humiliated her in front of the entire family on Christmas." Louise's hand now covered her mouth completely. Marcus took a small step backward. Rick still hadn't lifted his eyes. "Eliana doesn't owe you an apology." Grandma Lorraine's gaze found the camera, found me. "You owe her one." The hallway held absolute silence. Only the soft rhythm of my grandmother's breathing came through the speaker, mingling with the distant, muffled hum of a building, unaware that in apartment 4B, an entire family had frozen in place. My grandmother's face remained steady on the screen. No one had moved. Then my mother did what she always did when every other tactic failed. She tried to rewrite the narrative one last time. "So this is what you want." Her voice trembled, not with sorrow, but with rage disguised as heartbreak. "To destroy this family?" I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman I'd spent my life trying to earn affection from. I saw someone who had been given everything and still called it nothing. "No, Mom, I don't want to destroy anything. I just can't keep building something with my money that has no place for me." She opened her mouth. I didn't wait. I turned to Rick. "Uncle Rick, you have until the 31st to arrange your living situation. That's 3 weeks. His mouth opened, then closed. No quip, no punchline. The man who thrived on making others the joke had finally run dry. I looked at Louise and Marcus. If anyone in this family wants to talk to me after today, my door is open, but I won't be sending money, organizing holidays, or sitting on a folding chair anymore. Louise's eyes glistened. Marcus gave one small nod. I saw it. I stepped back into my apartment, hand on the door. I love you, Mom, but I love myself enough to stop paying for a seat at a table that was never set for me. And I closed the door. Not a slam, not a flourish, just a quiet, firm click, the sound of a lock turning for the first time in 4 years. Through the wood, I heard nothing for a long moment, then footsteps, shuffling, a soft sob, then the stairwell door opened and closed, and the hallway emptied. I stood with my back against the door, both palms flat on the surface, and breathed. It was finished, and I was still standing. After that door shut, I stayed there for a full minute, hands on the knob, wondering if I'd just made the worst mistake of my life or the wisest choice. Honestly, I still wonder sometimes. Do you think I went too far or not far enough? I didn't yell, I didn't curse, I just stopped paying. Was that wrong? Tell me in the comments. I read every one, and some of your stories hit harder than mine ever could. January 31st. The lease expired. I wasn't there when they left. I didn't need to be. Ms. Liang emailed confirmation. The unit was vacated on schedule, keys returned. Professional, clean, final. My mother moved in with Aunt Louise, but Louise, who had now heard the full truth, seen the statements, watched my grandmother dismantle Diane's version in real time, was no longer the comforting ally my mother expected. "You can stay," Louise told her, according to Megan, "but you're paying your share. I'm not running a charity." Diane Ingram, who hadn't paid rent in 4 years, was now splitting utilities with a woman who once idolized her. The balance had shifted, and it wasn't shifting back. Rick landed at a friend's place across town, a single-wide trailer with no spare room. He slept on a pull-out couch. No recliner, no beer fridge, no 55-inch TV. No holiday table where he could sit in a house someone else funded and make jokes at that person's expense. My mother tried one final move. She called a legal aid hotline, certain she could challenge the lease termination. The attorney listened, asked a few questions, and ruled in under 3 minutes. "The lease was never in your name, ma'am. The leaseholder followed every required procedure. There's nothing to contest." She hung up and never called another lawyer. I know these details because Megan shared them gradually over the following weeks, in calls that started short and slowly lengthened. She wasn't informing me to hurt our mother. She was doing it because, for the first time, she wanted to be the sister who told the truth. The old house stood empty by February. I never drove by. Mid-February, a Tuesday, my phone rang during lunch break. When Megan's name appeared, the old knot in my stomach didn't form. Instead came something closer to curiosity. "Hey," she said. Then, before I could ask how she was, "I got a part-time job at the campus bookstore. It's not much, $11 an hour, but I'm paying for my own textbooks this semester." I sat in the break room, phone to my ear, and felt a smile arise unbidden. "That's really good, Meg." "It's embarrassing, honestly. I'm 23 and just now buying my own books." "It's not embarrassing, it's a beginning." She paused. Then, "I'm sorry I never stood up for you, Ileana. I'm sorry I sat there every Christmas and Thanksgiving and said nothing. I didn't know the full picture, but I also didn't ask. That's on me." I leaned back against the plastic chair and stared at the break room ceiling and talked. "You were a kid, Megan. I don't blame you. I'm not a kid anymore, and I don't want to be the person who benefits from someone else's silence." That sentence, I can't describe what it did inside me. It was the first time anyone in my family had acknowledged what I sacrificed without me first presenting a spreadsheet to prove it.
We talked for over an hour about school, her new job, a boy who actually treated her with respect, normal things, sister things, the kind of conversation we'd never managed before because there was always a performance to uphold, a narrative to safeguard, a mother directing every exchange. "Can we have dinner next week?" she asked. "Just us?" "I'd like that." When I ended the call, Nadia stood in the break room doorway holding 2 coffees, grinning. "That sounded different," she said. It was late February. I was folding laundry when my phone rang. Caller ID? Mom. I stood there for 3 rings, pillowcase in one hand, weighing the choice. I answered. Her voice sounded altered, worn, stripped of its usual gloss, as though she'd rehearsed a speech and lost steam midway. "Eliana, I've been thinking. Maybe I wasn't fair to you at Christmas." I held the phone and waited. The laundry basket sat warm beside me. "I just want us to be a family again. I miss you. I miss the way things were." The way things were, the version where I paid, she performed, and no one questioned the arrangement. I let silence stretch for a moment. Then came the line I knew would arrive, the pattern unchanged. "Can you help me with a deposit for a new place? Just this once, and we can start over." There it was, the apology laced with the same hook it always carried. The sorry felt surface genuine, but beneath it lay the familiar request. Money first, reconciliation second, boundaries never. "Mom, I hear you, and I want a relationship with you too, but it can't begin with another check." Silence. "So that's a no." "That's a boundary." More silence, the kind that swells with everything unsaid. Then quietly, "You've changed." "Yes," I said, "I have." The call ended. No slammed door, no tears, no theatrics. Just 2 women on opposite sides of a line one had drawn and the other could not cross. I set the phone down, finished folding the pillowcase, tucked it into the closet, made the bed. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't retribution, it was simply truth spoken aloud, unadorned, and for the first time, that was sufficient. March. My studio apartment is compact, 400 square feet. One east-facing window lets morning light spill across the kitchen counter where I drink coffee before shifts. The refrigerator holds 3 items. Nadia's Christmas card, still taped in the top corner, a selfie of Megan and me from last week, dinner at a Thai spot near her campus, both laughing at something I can't recall now, but the warmth lingers. My February bank statement, the first month in 4 years I kept $1,200 instead of sending it away. I don't hate my mother. I want that clear. I don't dwell on her difficulties or take satisfaction in them. She remains my mother, and part of me will always wish she had chosen to truly see me. But I can no longer finance my own erasure.
I can't write the checks, occupy the folding chair, and call it love. We're not estranged, not precisely. I told her my door remains open, and it does, but the conditions have shifted. No money, no guilt, no staged performances. If she wants to see me, she can meet for coffee at a restaurant. She hasn't accepted the invitation yet. Grandma Lorraine calls every Sunday now. Just us, no Diane between. Last week, she said she was proud of me. I had to pull the car over because tears blurred the road. Rick hasn't called. I don't anticipate he will. Megan texts nearly every day. Yesterday, she sent a photo of her first bookstore paycheck stub, $934. She'd circled it in red ink and written, "My money, my name." I taped it to the fridge. I used to believe love meant giving until nothing remained. Now I understand that love which only takes is not love, it's a lease, and I finally allowed mine to expire. That's my story. Every figure was accurate, every silence was real. Every door I closed with love, not vengeance. If you've ever been the invisible one in your family, the one who pays without thanks, who shows up without a seat, I want you to hear this. You're permitted to stop. You're not selfish. You're surviving. If this story resonated, please subscribe. More stories like this are linked in the description below. I think you'll feel them the same way. Drop a comment. What boundary do you wish you'd set sooner? I read every single one. See you in the next one.